few good reviews. The final one of 2020. Wanted to make this one a bit of a recap kind of one where I look back on some releases that I've not managed to get to, but also a few newer releases that I'm just not going to have time to do full reviews for. So there may be some bigger names in this one, more so than usual. But of course, Christmas is coming up. Year-end list season is coming up. Just, you know, I didn't have time to do some of these reviews, even though I did want to and I had initially planned to. But what can you do? What can you do? It's busy time, got work to do for university, got work to do for these list videos. It is how it is. It is how it is. Hopefully you enjoyed the video anyway. Let me know your thoughts on these releases in the comments, and yeah, enjoy the video and watch the video. Watch it. If you're here, watch it. I like this Avalanches album, man. I think it's pretty impressive. I think the flow from start to finish is extremely consistent and just has some really great features to accompany the vibe of the album from start to finish. Like, it's a really consistent, pleasant listening experience, and I feel like none of the features pull away from that at all, which I thought was going to be an issue with how diverse some of them are. You know, you've got artists ranging from like Rivers Cuomo to Jamie XX to friggin' MGMT, and yeah, all of them seem to come together in a pretty impressive way. Even that Rivers Cuomo feature sounds okay, which at first I hated, but you know what, I don't think it's quite that bad. So yeah, Avalanches did a good job here. I mean, I would have done a full review of this, but I'm just a bit busy at the moment. But, you know, it has my approval. It has my approval. So I raved like mad over Haruka Nakamura's Still Life earlier this year. One of my favourite albums of the year. The beautiful piano playing on that album kills me. I really am glad that I discovered this guy, because honestly, his discography is such a treat. Really treat yourself to listening to all of his albums, because they're really, really bloody good. And Still Life was another addition to that great discography that he's got. And then he dropped a sequel, Still Life 2 here, which I didn't even know about initially, but someone told me about it and I was like, damn. But it's not quite as good. It's a bit more melancholic. The tracks aren't as brimming with like shining beauty like they were on Still Life. I just feel like that album had so much to offer, but this sequel is sort of like a somber sister album, really. Like, it's like sadder tracks, sadder versions of the really upbeat versions of what we got before. And there were some somber tracks on the original Still Life, but this is just even more like drearier. But it's good. It's good. It's a good album, but I just don't find myself rushing to check it out. But at the same time, I don't really mind, because there's already been one great album this year. So to expect 2 great albums in 1 year from an artist is asking for quite a lot anyway. But check this out, and definitely check out Still Life if you haven't heard this one. So doing a full review of a solo Kid Cudi album would be pretty pointless on my part, because I've never really been a big fan of any of the albums he's put out. I can't say I've liked anything in his discography thus far. So yeah, it'd be pretty pointless. I'd be saying the same thing I would with every other album. Not a fan of his voice. I think there's this tone to his voice that's just really hard to like and hard to stomach, especially on this album. I thought it sounded even worse over these kind of like dark trap beats, which were way more modern and, you know, newer compared to what he's done in the past. He's definitely, you know, looking to his contemporaries now and doing music similarly to a lot of other artists that are doing music in the hip hop realm these days, you know, the kind of like trap inspired beats. And I just think they sound pretty generic. Like, Jesus Christ, every beat sounded like something I've heard 100 times before. And sometimes that's not too bad if the rapper or the performer can add something to the beats and make the tracks interesting. But goddamn, Cudi sucks the life out of everything on this album, man. Kid Cudi is not adding to these tracks in any way. Like, Jesus Christ, this was hard to sit through. I will maybe take the track with Pop Smoke. I thought that was decent. That was hit pretty hard, but everything else was just so sluggish and dull. Like, oh God, yeah. really didn't like this album, and I'm not going to say I like Speeding Bullets to Heaven, because I don't like Speeding Bullets to Heaven, but I will say I'll take that album over this. There we go. Biggest hot take of the year, and you can unsubscribe now because that is a take you will not like. But I'm being honest. Not really talked much about country in 2020, so I guess it's worth bringing up American Aquarium, who put out a pretty good album here, and I sort of feel like I expected a bit more from it, though I don't know why. I think I'd seen a few reviews that suggested it was really great and one of the best country releases of 2020. Personally don't see it that way, but it's definitely noteworthy. You know, it's worthwhile to listen to. There's some like political themes on some of the tracks, not really diving into anything that's really, you know, that heavy though, but like it's fine. Everything about the album just feels fine. The singing's fine, the instrumentals are fine. I don't really mind it. It's fine when it's on, but nothing really that's gonna stick with me in the future. BTS for me are really really one of the weakest K-pop groups around right now. Not that I've listened to a huge amount of K-pop, but I've listened to a decent amount, and I've been getting into more of it a little bit this year, finding different kind of artists, different groups, but they're really not the most entertaining one for me. And this new album just kind of yeah, just solidifies that. Really didn't get much out of these tracks at all. And then there is, of course, the huge single Dynamite, which is it's a pretty solid track, actually. I think that was one of the best songs out of every track I've ever heard from them, like ever. But apart from that, there's really nothing going on here that excites me at all. The production's fine, the performances are fine. There's nothing really standing out apart from that one track, which is weird because that has been a huge smash hit. And yeah, not really anything else in that album here that's as good as that song. So yeah, really hope you remember my Seba Kaapstad review from last year, because that was a crazy undiscovered gem to hit right at the end of the year and throw a 9 out of 10 on, because that album was fantastic. Seriously, one of my favorite neo soul releases of recent years. Made my decade list too for the 2010s. Super impressive. But this follow-up album, man, just really not as enamored with it. A lot of the tracks lyrically aren't as impressive. Musically, it's fine. There's nothing bad about this album, by the way, at all. But I really wanted to do a full review for it, but I just didn't want to slap like a 6 out of 10 on it or whatever, because it just isn't fair to them, because they're still pretty unknown. They're still growing, and I just didn't want to halt the growth that they potentially could get with, you know, a 6 out of 10 review that's just gonna like throw them under the bus, which isn't really fair. But yeah, maybe my expectations were just too high, like too high for this one, because it just did not hit. The Quelly Chris track though, Quelly Chris, that features a great track, but everything else, I wasn't as impressed with it. It was pretty okay, but man, my expectations ruined it, I think. A more interesting Korean-based group to mention in this A Few Good Reviews is Say So Neon, who are able to blend elements of like dream pop and indie rock and pop rock to make these really playful and catchy, melodic, heavy tracks on this EP here. Definitely excited to see where they go. I only found out about these a few days ago. Shout out to Dockers on Twitter. Never known how to say that guy's name, but he sent this band my way. Definitely want to see where they go though from here, because obviously there are some really good tracks on here. If you can listen to anything, listen to Midnight Train, the first song. That track is really good. But yeah, definitely want to see full albums from these guys soon. So Chelmico is this little J-pop group that I haven't heard of before, but I got onto Maze. It's quite far into their discography at this point. They've got a few albums, some really fun jams on this. The first track is a bit shaky, I must admit. It's not one of the highlights for me, but there are some nice little pop tunes across this. They have a bit of like hip-hop influence on some of the tracks too. Not that prominent, but you can definitely tell that they've got their influences. Not the most original thing in the world, but I feel like, you know, there would be a huge fan base for this kind of thing, especially if you're into more of that Japanese pop type stuff, which I know is starting to grow, and as well as, well, K-pop has already grown, but I know J-pop is growing a little bit more these days amongst indie music nerds. So definitely wanted to mention this one and give it a little shout out. Really not feeling this Aesop Rock album at all. Like, just found a lot of his flows and deliveries across every track really similar, and it all just kind of like mushes together, especially with the runtime too. And lyrically, Aesop's on his A game with his vocabulary, just throwing out all kinds of crazy rhymes and insane, you know, themes and stuff like that, just as he always is. There's nothing wrong with this album on a lyrical level, but musically it's just not interesting at all. I find myself struggling to engage with what he's doing here, and again, just with the amount of tracks there is nowhere near enough differentiation between each track. There's little to no versatility amongst each track. There's just such a lack of variation, man. I can't sit through this from start to finish and find anything to enjoy, unfortunately. And thank you for watching a few good reviews, the final one of 2020. Lots of lists on the way, so hopefully you enjoy what's to come. Let me know your thoughts on these albums in the comments. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. As always, do have a good day and goodbye.